Closure. A word dressed in sentimental robes, paraded around like it has the power to heal wounds it never touched. They come back with heavy sighs and practiced apologies, hoping to leave their mess at your door, wrapped in a bow of contrition. But closure is not a gift you hand over to uninvited guests. Closure is earned, not demanded, and most certainly not from the same hands that held the knife. Show them the exit, not with anger, not with theatrics, just the cold efficiency of someone who's already buried the past. The plea for closure is rarely about making amends. It's about absolution. They want to sleep soundly, to tell themselves that their sins no longer haunt anyone but the shadows. It's not about you. It was never about you. You were the stage for their drama, the canvas for their chaos. And now, when the consequences have settled, they want to rewrite the story with a softer ending. But you're not here to rewrite history for their convenience. The chapter is closed. They just can't accept that they're no longer part of the book. Watch closely when they speak. Notice how their words glide like a serpent's tongue, curling around phrases like, "I just need to explain," or "It wasn't what it looked like." They come with layers of justification, hoping to drown your silence in their sea of excuses. But you've seen the playbook before. Their performance is tired, their lines worn thin, and your silence? It's the loudest statement in the room, a quiet rejection of their carefully constructed act. Let them squirm under the weight of it. They will disguise their return as vulnerability, as if opening old wounds is a sign of bravery. They'll tell you they've changed, that time has sculpted them into someone new. But change without accountability is nothing more than a costume. And you've seen what lies beneath. The same patterns, the same manipulation, wrapped in a different package. Let them rattle the door of your life. It doesn't mean you have to open it. Humor their monologue, if only to watch them tie themselves into knots. They'll stumble over their own contradictions, trying to justify actions that never deserved an audience. The excuses, the regret, it all drips with the desperation of someone who's realized they underestimated your strength. Let them speak. Let them unravel. But don't let them in. Some doors, once closed, should remain locked. Closure doesn't come from reliving the past. It comes from refusing to let it dictate the present. They want you to revisit the wreckage with them, to sift through the ashes and validate their remorse. But you've moved on. You've rebuilt. The foundation you stand on now is stronger than the one they burned down. Their return is nothing more than a ghost knocking on a house that no longer belongs to them. Peace is a fortress, and every returned visitor is a potential intruder. They want a piece of what you've built, not to share it, but to feel less empty themselves. But peace was not theirs to give, and it's not theirs to take. Protect it with the same resolve that carried you through the storm they left behind. A simple gesture, a glance toward the exit, says more than any words ever could. Understand that their need for closure is their burden, not yours. Let them carry the weight of their actions, the discomfort of unanswered questions. It's not your responsibility to ease their conscience or mend the bridge they set ablaze. Sometimes, the most profound lesson is the absence of resolution. Let them learn it. Closure isn't a handshake or a hug, or a neatly tied ribbon on a fractured story. It's not found in the staged theatrics of someone begging for one last chance to rewrite the ending. Closure is a decision, cold and deliberate. made when you decide the door is staying closed. No words can force it open. No staged apology can slip through the cracks. It's the silent moment when you choose yourself over the spectacle of their remorse. And that's the part they never seem to grasp. It's not their decision to make. It never was. They'll say it's about healing, about putting the past to rest. But what they mean is they want to unburden themselves, to step out of the shadow of their own misdeeds and walk away lighter. Their guilt is a poison they want to bleed into your hands, as if the weight of their sins can be lifted by dragging you through the wreckage one more time. But your healing doesn't require their input, and your peace isn't dependent on their confession. You've already closed the door. They're just pounding on it for an audience that no longer exists. Watch the desperation in their eyes as they try to claw their way back into your life. It's not love or regret driving them. It's the uncomfortable silence of being left with themselves. The mirror is cruel when there's no one else to blame, and they can't stand the reflection. Staring back, they'll offer tears and trembling words. But beneath it all, the same old manipulations linger. They aren't looking for closure. They're looking for control. The illusion that they still matter in a world you've rebuilt without them. The irony is almost poetic. They want to mend what they shattered, but only on their terms. Their timing, their conditions, their script. They'll tell you they're ready to make amends, but all they really want is to rewrite the narrative in a way that suits them. Closure isn't about sharing the stage. It's about walking away. And you've already written your final act. Their return is just an epilogue you didn't ask for and don't need. Stand firm in your silence. Let them flail against the fortress you've built, their words bouncing off walls they can't penetrate. No reaction is the sharpest dagger, a clear statement that their presence no longer holds power. The weight of their actions is theirs alone to bear. You've carried it long enough. Let them drown in the echoes of their own pleas, while you remain unmoved, untouched, untethered. It's funny, in a twisted sort of way. The same person who lit the match now begs for water, not to save the ruins, but to soothe their own conscience. And you're supposed to play the savior? Number, you've graduated from the role they cast you in. This time, the fire burns only for them. And as the smoke clears, you remain standing, stronger than before. Their ashes are not your concern. The beauty of walking away is that it's a one-way road. Every step forward takes you further from the chaos they tried to trap you in. They'll chase after you, of course. People like that always do. But chasing shadows is a fool's errand. You've become untouchable, a ghost of their own making. They wanted closure, but all they'll get is the bitter taste of their own irrelevance. Closure isn't an open dialogue. It's a full stop. It's the unspoken refusal to be dragged into their orbit again. Let them scream into the void, claw at doors that won't open, and craft elaborate stories to make themselves feel better. Meanwhile, you'll continue walking, head held high, into a future they can't touch. Their attempts to reach you are nothing more than whispers lost in the wind. Change is the most loyal companion in life, a force that waits for no one and forgives even less. Post-closure, it demands more than survival. It demands transformation. There's no grace in clinging to what was, no dignity in wrestling ghosts. The only path forward is to surrender to the rhythm, to let change tear apart the remnants of the past and shape you into something unrecognizable, something untouchable. The dance of change isn't gentle. It's raw, chaotic, and relentless. But within that chaos lies freedom, a freedom only earned by those bold enough to embrace it. Closure might feel like the end of a story, but it's more like the striking of a match. The spark ignites a fire, and the fire consumes all that no longer serves you. There's beauty in the burn, in the destruction of the old, to make way for the new. The people who once held you back, who demanded explanations and closure, fade into irrelevance. Their absence leaves a void, but it's a void filled with possibilities. In their place, the firelight casts shadows of who you're becoming, someone they wouldn't recognize even if they tried. Change doesn't wait for you to be ready. It drags you forward, kicking and screaming if necessary. Post-closure, it's not about asking why things happened or dwelling on what could have been. It's about stepping into the unknown with defiance, refusing to look back. Every stumble is part of the choreography. Every misstep, a lesson in resilience. Change doesn't care for your hesitations. It only cares that you move, that you keep dancing, even when the music feels unfamiliar. The ones who seek closure are afraid of change. They cling to the past because it's familiar, even if it's painful. They want to freeze time, to trap you in the same patterns that broke you. But you've already broken free. You've learned that change is the only constant, and you've chosen to align yourself with its rhythm. Their need for closure is their prison, while your willingness to embrace change is your liberation. The dance of change isn't always elegant. It's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But within that pain lies growth. Post-closure, you're no longer defined by what happened to you or by those who wronged you. You're defined by your ability to adapt, to evolve, to rise above. Change isn't a choice. It's a command. And you've answered that command with strength they could never fathom. Moving with change means leaving behind those who can't keep up. The ones who seek closure want to pull you back into the past, to tether you to their regrets. But you've severed those ties. The dance of change is a solo act, one that requires shedding old weights and embracing new possibilities. It's not about who you were, it's about who you're becoming, and that's someone they'll never reach. There's power in letting go, in refusing to let the past dictate your future. Closure isn't about making peace with others. It's about making peace with yourself. It's about stepping into the storm of change and letting it strip away everything that no longer serves you. The ones who return for closure don't understand this. They want validation, forgiveness, or a way back in. But you've already moved on, leaving them behind in the wreckage of their own making. The dance of change is a rebellion against the chains of the past. It's a declaration that you are no longer defined by what happened or who did what. It's a statement that you've chosen freedom over familiarity, growth over stagnation. The ones who return for closure are trapped in their own cycles, unable to break free. But you've already stepped into the light, leaving their shadows far behind. Change is the ultimate teacher, the ultimate equalizer. It shows no mercy and offers no shortcuts. Post-closure, it demands that you rise to its challenge, that you face its storms with courage and grace. The ones who seek closure are afraid of this challenge. They want to cling to the past, to rewrite the narrative. But you've already embraced the chaos, already found strength in the uncertainty. Their attempts to pull you back are futile. You've moved forward, and there's no going back. When everything begins to collapse around you, it feels catastrophic, doesn't it? As if the ground beneath your feet is betraying you with every tremor. But what if it's not the world that's breaking? What if the cracking and splintering you hear is the shattering of an identity that no longer serves you? That brittle mask you wore for far too long, molded by the hands of manipulators, is finally falling apart. And while the collapse feels like chaos, it's a liberation in disguise. It's the unmasking of who you've always been beneath the layers of their demands, expectations, and deceptions. Toxic people thrive on the illusions they build around you. They need your compliance, your self-doubt, your silence. They need you to stay small, trapped within the identity they've constructed for you. But when that identity begins to crumble, their power falters. They relied on the version of you that questioned your worth, the version that sought their approval. When you let that version burn, you force them to confront a reality they never prepared for. A version of you that is unshackled, untamed, and unyielding. There's no mourning in this destruction, only celebration. The loss of your old self is not a tragedy, but a triumph. That identity allowed others to use your kindness as a weapon, to twist your empathy into chains. It whispered lies about your worth, convincing you that endurance was strength and suffering was noble. Now it's reduced to ash, and from those ashes rises someone they never thought you'd become. Someone who doesn't seek permission to exist. Someone who stands without apology. When things fall apart, what's left is the core of you. Stripped of the labels they assigned, stripped of the roles you played to keep the peace. What remains is raw, unpolished, and terrifyingly real. Toxic people fear that core because it's unmanipulatable. It doesn't play their games, doesn't bend to their tactics. The core of you sees through the charade, dismantles the illusion, and walks away without looking back. The ones who caused your collapse will never understand the gift they gave you. Their cruelty, their betrayal, their lies. All of it forced you to shed the skin that had grown too tight. They wanted to break you, but instead they freed you. And that freedom is something they'll never comprehend. It's a freedom that comes not from escape, but from facing the fire and emerging unscathed. Toxic people count on you clinging to the remnants of the old life. They count on you trying to piece it back together, to make it whole again. But you've learned that wholeness isn't about restoration. It's about reinvention. You've stopped trying to fix the broken and started building something entirely new. And in that process, you've discovered strength they never believed you had. A strength that makes their return a mere afterthought, a footnote in your story. When the dust settles, you realize that what fell apart was never your world. It was their illusion of control, their carefully curated narrative, where you were the supporting character. Now you're the protagonist, and the story is yours to write. The collapse wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of a chapter they'll never get to read. The most dangerous thing you've learned is how to celebrate the fall, how to see the destruction not as loss, but as opportunity. Toxic people thrive on predictability, on knowing how you'll react, on keeping you tied to the familiar, but you've stepped into the unknown, and in that space, they have no power. The rules have changed, and they're no longer in the game. The identity that once let them take advantage of you is gone. The version of you that made excuses for their behavior, that tolerated their lies, that sought their approval. It no longer exists. What stands in its place is someone they can't manipulate, can't control, can't tether to the past. Someone who doesn't flinch when they come knocking. To let go is the art of unbinding chains forged by the past. Chains made of images burned into memory, grudges held too tightly, fears whispered in the quiet of night, and disappointments clung to like lifelines. It is the surrender of ghosts, the abandonment of echoes, the deliberate uncaging of a spirit weighed down by someone else's sins. Letting go is not weakness. It is defiance. It is the audacity to reject the narratives written by those who sought to control you, to tether you to their world of manipulation and deceit. It is freedom so pure, it feels like rebellion. The images that haunt you, the emotions that cripple you, they are not your reality. They are relics of a story that no longer serves you, a script written by hands unworthy of holding the pen. To let go is to set fire to that script, to watch its words turn to ash, to let the wind scatter its remnants far from where you stand. It is a reclamation, an unspoken vow to never again live under the shadow of someone else's desires. To let go is to rise from the ruins they tried to bury you in. Letting go is the silence that answers the chaos, the calm that follows the storm. It is not passive, it is power. It is the refusal to carry the weight of someone else's failures, their lies, their cruelty. To let go is to deny them space in your mind, your heart, your life. It is an act of self-preservation, a declaration that your peace is worth more than their attempts to disrupt it. It is the realization that the past is only as heavy as you allow it to be. Grudges, though intoxicating in their bitterness, are shackles. They tie you to the moment of betrayal, to the person who wronged you. To let go of a grudge is to cut that tie, to free yourself from the cycle of reliving their offense. It is not forgiveness. It is indifference. It is the understanding that their actions no longer deserve your energy, your thoughts, your care. Letting go is the ultimate act of taking back control. Fears, born from the wounds of the past, have no place in the life you're building. To let go of fear is to step into the unknown with unshakable confidence, to trust in your ability to withstand whatever comes next. It is the courage to confront the shadows that once loomed so large, to see them for what they are, powerless in the face of your resolve. Letting go is the light that dispels their darkness. Clinging to what was, to what could have been, is a trap. It keeps you anchored to a version of yourself that no longer exists, to a reality that no longer holds relevance. To let go is to release the grip, to open your hands and allow what is no longer meant for you to drift away. It is to trust in the process of becoming, to embrace the infinite possibilities that come with shedding the past. Disappointments are inevitable, but they are not final. To let go of disappointment is to refuse to let it define you, to see it not as an end, but as a lesson. It is to extract the wisdom from the wound, to carry the knowledge forward while leaving the pain behind. Letting go is the ultimate act of transformation, the alchemy of turning loss into growth. The past does not own you. To let go is to reclaim your spirit from its clutches, to break free from the cycle of reliving old wounds. It is the choice to live in the present, to build a future untainted by the failures and betrayals of yesterday. Letting go is not forgetting. It is moving forward with clarity, with purpose, with strength. When you let go, you do not lose. You gain. You gain space for joy, for peace, for the things and people who truly deserve a place in your life. You gain the freedom to be who you are, unencumbered by the weight of others' expectations and disappointments. Letting go is a gift you give yourself, a reminder that you are worthy of a life unburdened by the past. When they return for closure, show them the exit. Let them carry the weight of their actions while you walk forward, lighter, freer, unshackled by what once was.